Okay.
Well, maybe. There goes. Aloha, everybody. Jim and Jory here from Hawaii, the land of the Hawaiians. We actually know a little bit about our property, Tanya, because we had it blessed by a Hawaiian, they call them Hawaiian cultural practitioners. And
Mhm.
she told us the sweetest thing when she came and blessed our property when we first moved in. And she told us that she could hear, spiritually speaking, she could hear the sound of children playing in what we call our yard.
Mhm.
I don't know what it was back then. I believe at different times it's been lots of different things, including just kind of brushland and also macadamia farm and all kinds of interesting
Mhm.
things.
Yeah.
So we're really glad and feel blessed to be visitors here in Hawaii for the last 12 years. And we've been doing this practice group online since the beginning of the pandemic, and it's really enriched our lives to be able to be with people from all over the world. And
Yeah. We took it from a training that we would do every week here in on this property out to the world. So it's really fun to be able to include all of you and get to know each other a little bit more each time.
yeah, and Jory's back. Jory was taking a
Uh,
couple weeks back off, and glad to
uh,
have you back here with us.
yeah, I'm glad to.
Yeah, how are you feeling right now?
Right now, I'm so excited to see everybody and to be back. I've been kind of sequestered and isolated a bit by choice. I've done a fair amount of healing and glad to be back.
Yeah, so let's say a little bit about we've got a new person here for the first time, and maybe others here for the first time. So we call this a practice group, and that implies that there'll be an opportunity to practice NVC. So it's not so much a webinar where uh, it's just Jim and Jory talking or teaching. We try to involve you as much as we can in practicing NVC. Some of it will be kind of self connection or journaling kind of exercises, and some of it will be a chance for you to speak and learn with one another in small groups. And so we'll start in just a minute. Jory, you willing to lead us in a self connection exercise today?
Huh, okay.
Yeah, so just a second, we'll do that. So self connection is one of the ways that we practice, and I'll give Jory a second to figure out what she wants to say if she wants to figure it out. Sometimes it just kind of comes.
Hmm.
And then we'll go into small groups, which are usually 2 or 3 in size. And we'll give you instructions on what to do in the small group before we put you in there. And just mostly it's just a chance to connect with new friends. And then we'll come back here to the main room and have a lesson today in screaming non-violently, or screaming in giraffe, as Marshall called it. Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of nonviolent communication. And so, and after we do the lesson, and it'll be interactive today with your feedback and some writing, and then a chance to then go to small groups to talk about what you learn. So that's the plan for today. And Jory, you want
And
to?
now we'll see what happens.
Now we'll find out what really happens.
Oh, so we're gonna have an opportunity right now to connect with ourselves. It, our we are our most significant relationship. Our relationship to ourselves is the most significant one. We take ourselves with us wherever we go, and so really honoring that relationship is what we're doing right now when we do a self connection exercise. So you can look around at whatever faces you see here, and then turn your attention towards yourself. Just to take 2 or 3 breaths of and notice your breath. Mute. So just notice any sensations that you have in your body right now. Just bringing yourself more and more into this present moment and your own personal experience. Notice if there's any part of your body calling your attention more than others. And just allow it to be just as it is. It's like giving permission to just be. And consider, what's one thing right in this moment that you feel grateful for? It can be as simple as that you're breathing air, or it can be something else that comes alive in you. And then send out a wish that all beings be able to connect to at least one thing that they're grateful for. And you chose to come to this group today. What are your hopes for your time here? And consider, what can you do that can support you in fulfilling your hopes for your time here? Any requests you have of yourself? Consider if there are any other requests of anyone else that you would like to have, that you would choose to request. Okay, so whenever you're ready, you can, if your eyes are closed, you can open them up and look around, see who is here. Notice that we're still expanding into more and more people. And you'll have the gift, if you'd like, of being able to connect more intimately with some people, not just by looking, but by being in a small group of anywhere from 2 to 4 people, depending upon how the numbers match up here. If you don't want to be in a group, just put an equal sign in front of your name. If you're looking on the screen, you'll see a few people have done that, but just in case that's true for you. I noticed Corey had an equal sign. It seems you've changed that. I want to make sure you're aware of that, Corey.
Yeah.
And with that, I'll pass it back to you.
Okay, so we'll do a little small group activity here. We call it a check-in. It's a chance just to be with some other people practicing nonviolent communication. Even if this is your very first time practicing, you're already a natural because you're all born giraffes. You're all been born to be NVC practitioners. So in the small group, you'll get a chance to practice honesty and empathy. Honesty is the expressive part of NVC, where you just get to say what's in your heart. And the prompt is, how was this exercise for you today? What did you like about it? What about any needs of yours met through the exercise? Any needs unmet, and so forth? Just a chance to express about what the exercise was like. Most of the groups have 3 people, and so 2/3 of the time you'll be listening. And this is a chance to practice empathy. Empathy doesn't require any words, it just requires an open heart and listening. And so you can just be present with the people that are expressing their honesty. And please guard your own time and share it with one another. The small group will be about 10 minutes long. And then there'll be a minute at the end just to finish up. So you don't need to do anything to come back to the main room. You'll automatically come back here. So you'll see a little signal on your screen that says that the breakout room is ending, but you don't need to attend to that. You could just let it go and just enjoy the last minute or so of connection with your friends. And with that, I'm going to open up the groups, and we'll be here in case anybody needs us. You can call for us. See you back here in about 10 minutes.
Aloha. And I wonder if anybody has anything they would like to share in the group about what's happened for you in the last week from the last training we did, or just whatever is within your being to share about NVC and your experience.
Including the last little breakout room.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to raise your hand, you see at the bottom of the screen, if you move your mouse down there, if you've got a mouse, there's a whole bunch of little icons that kind of show up. And one of them says reactions with a smiley face. If you click on that, it opens up a place where you can raise your hand. And like Nushin did. Go ahead, Nushin.
Hi, Nushin.
Hi, Jory. Good to see you again. Good to see you. It's lovely to see both of you together. It's like so sweet. Yeah, It's just it's kind of cold in Michigan, so we just have it's a cozy night. I have my tea, and then the space heater is on, so just talking to the group was really bringing a lot of sweetness, and I was really touched because we have a first timer in the call, that if it's okay, Angelo, just say that his name is Angelo. He's calling from New York, and he was in our group, and I was really touched. It reminded me of the first time that i I was in your group. I participated in your classes, and
Mhm.
how sweet it was to be in the community. And just wanted to say welcome, Angelo.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank,
thank you for sharing that, and it just brings in the memory of how long we've known each other, and don't remember any details, but I remember you. And feel the quality of connection. It's sweet.
Yes, yeah. Yes, yeah. I used to do the calls, with my phone, and I really learned so much. Yeah, thank you. And I love your sleeveless dress. It's kind of it's nice. Feel like in Hawaii, you guys are nice and warm over there.
Yeah, I wondered actually if I should have put something else on because everybody else would get jealous.
thanks, Nushin.
Thanks,
Is
Lucian.
that complete for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Anybody else want to share anything? Hi, Leslie. I see you have arrived. I'm glad to see you. Nikila Nanda's here now too. Nikila Nanda used to be a regular participant when we were doing this live in our living room downstairs, and so he's seems like he is often here. Really appreciate you being here, Nikila Nanda.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate all of you being here. It really warms my heart and it gives me hope that we can actually create the world we would like to live in. So thanks for the partnership. And I see Jeff has his hand up, and then we'll follow it with Francis. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I wanted to express gratitude because the self-connection exercises are teaching me how to connect and be present with myself, and it helps to be able to be present with other people. And so, like, I'm seeing progress in myself of non-judgment and just being with people and not having an expectation. I'm grateful for what you said earlier. You're like, that's the plan. And then you're like, we'll see what happens, so not connection to outcome. And I'm learning a lot. So thank you for the opportunity to share that.
You're welcome. Glad you're here, Jeff.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Jeff.
And Francis?
You're
Oops.
still muted, Francis. We'd love to hear you, but we can't yet. Would you mute Jeff, please? Thank you.
Do you know how to unmute yourself, Francis? Lower left-hand corner of your screen. There's a little button that looks like a microphone.
Ah, there you go.
Oh, there.
Found it.
Yeah, lost your video there. That looks like it's coming back.
Thank you.
All
You're
right.
good coaches.
Got both of them.
Um,
Face and hand. Yes.
well, I had a reaction to you're saying about how people might be upset, able to not wear sleeves there. But I just took that as an opportunity to feel grateful that a lot of the year I don't have to wear sleeves. and also that I like the cold because it kills all the insects that eat the food crops.
Ah, now I'm jealous. We have a lot of creatures.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm kind of new to this, so that's all I have to say today. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for speaking up and letting us hear your voice and get to know you a little bit more.
Glad you're here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gregory.
I'm also very grateful for that opening exercise. You've been teaching that for a long time, and I've been it's now become the most important part of my life is to follow up in that exercise, as I shared my little breakout group, and bring that in as many times as I can throughout the day. And I'm so happy that you start every time with this. I only wish I could join more on Mondays and Saturdays. Those are the hardest days for me to do. I have to cut out a minute, but I'm just grateful that I caught this one little glimpse of what this is. It's just perfect for me. Thank you.
You're welcome, and it's good to see you again. It seems like a long time since we've seen you.
Yeah.
Are you still in Honolulu?
I am now, yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Nice
Wonderful.
to see you again.
Yeah. And Siva.
Did you put Francis's hand?
I wanted to share one idea that happened today to me when I was visiting a friend, and I mentioned that I study NVC, and I described it as quickly as I could. I said, it's where you have empathy for yourself first, and then that gives you the ability to have empathy for other people. And my friend said, I never thought about having empathy for myself first. I've always thought about the need for having empathy for other people. So I think it's an important foundation, and I think the other people who spoke were somehow saying that. It's not so obvious. Even though many times in many instances, there's that airplane metaphor where you put the oxygen mask on yourself first, And then you're able to take care of whoever you're with on the plane. It's just, our culture has taught us that we're supposed to take care of other people, but it doesn't teach us so clearly that we're supposed to take care of ourselves.
Thanks, Siva. That resonates for me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Put the oxygen mask on yourself before assisting others. That's a really key component of nonviolent communication and what we're going to be covering today. I'm going to share my screen with you now. Before I do that, let me just check. Sometimes it takes people a little while to make sure that they're not ready to speak. Just check to see if there's anything that is up for you that you'd like to share. Give you a couple more seconds to decide. Monica. I'm glad I followed my intuition for once. Go ahead, Monica.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I just remember when Jordy said you can share things that you've learned from our recent classes. And what I noticed recently is that I'm increasingly less afraid to connect with myself, to tune in and really embrace and feel my feelings. And this is something that, I've been working for many, many years. I mean, I'm a meditator for 24 years. So it's something I'm working daily, but I can see the impact of nonviolent communication in helping me be less afraid of just feeling my feelings day to day. So I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, I'm really touched hearing that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you have this experience. It's the experience I hope for everyone.
Inspired, Monica. Thanks for sharing.
Definitely. Thank you for reaching out and sharing.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Going once.
How about you? You have something you want to say?
I do. Going twice. Okay, we'll learn how to scream in giraffe. First thing to say about screaming in giraffe, it does not require a loud voice. So that doesn't require anybody to raise the voice beyond even a whisper. You can scream in giraffe with a whisper. You could even scream in giraffe with your eyes, I suppose, without saying a single word. And but we'll talk about how to express yourself today in certain situations. Let me share my screen with you, and we'll go through a quick little slideshow for a part of it. So think about this for a second. If another person is using more words than you can take in, what choice do you tend to make? So just think about it for a minute. And then I'm going to be quiet for 2 minutes while I give you the opportunity to answer the poll. So I put a poll on the screen, and you can answer the question for what's up for you.
Oh, interesting.
Had so much fun with it last week. I wanted
And
to do it
everybody
again.
can see it? No.
We'll go another 30 seconds or so in case you want to vote. Voting is optional, of course, just like in real elections. And this is, as far as I can tell, this is private. Nobody knows what you're voting, how you're voting. Oops.
Someone needed to be muted. Jeff. He's muted.
Another 15 seconds. Up to 88%. This is better than last week. Better than the last week's election too in the United States. Up to 90%.
Wow, 4 more people. We'll see. Oh, 2 more people. Is that you and me?
Anybody want to say all of the above? That's probably the most accurate answer.
You didn't put that on there, huh?
Yeah. So we had 95% participation today. Wow.
Wow, that's really amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It really is a gift. I experience it as a gift that we get to explore together this way, that you would be willing to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's easier to be vulnerable too when you don't have to put your name on it.
Yeah, so let's examine some of these choices that it seems like we have. One is I grin and bear it. We had almost 30% say that. I resemble that remark.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I just kind of nod my head and grin and hope that it's over soon. And that does not always support the quality of connection that inspires compassionate giving and receiving for me. And then I interrupt forcefully, taking the floor, blaming the other. 2% of the people said that. I have done that too, and I think that all of us have experienced that at some point in our life, especially when we're about 2 years old, or 12 or 13, where where it becomes our habit as we sort of discover our independence. In a way, we think we're independent people, and we want to get our needs met, even if we don't even have the word need yet in our vocabulary.
And of course, the more we feel unsafe, the more we feel triggered, the more likely we are, I think, to interrupt forcefully, or even whether we interrupt or not, blame the other.
And then another choice, about a fifth of us said that we check out and begin ignoring the other person. I resemble that remark. That's very similar to the first one in a way. And if you think about these first 3 choices, they reflect, those of you who have been here for the last few weeks, we've been working with giraffe ears and jackal ears. And grinning and bear it is a form for me of jackal ears in, where I'm not really taking responsibility, and I think maybe it's my fault that they're talking too much, and so forth. The second choice, I interrupt forcefully. That's jackal ears out, where it's the voice of anger and full of blame and so forth for the other person. And then I check out and begin ignoring the other person. That's another kind of form of could be jackal ears in or out, depending on the energy that I'm doing it with. If I'm doing it out of a sense of kind of being frozen and not knowing what to do and catching my own helplessness or hopelessness, then that would be jackal ears in. But if it's really intentionally ignoring the other person, maybe they'll just go away. That could be the voice of blame and criticism again.
Yeah, and just touching into our shared humanity. We do, most of us do this at least a little bit.
Yeah. And then last week we actually practiced this skill. I interrupt with empathy, and how inspiring it is to see that a fifth of you have had the experience of interrupting with empathy. And basically that looks like interrupting with reflecting the feelings and needs of the other person, not to take the floor away, but actually to bring life back to the conversation.
It's an acknowledging their humanity.
Yeah, and helping to support and sustain connection. And then something else, I'm very curious about the something else. Who would be willing to share what you came up with as something else? Just
see what we can learn. Either raise your hand or put something in the chat, just so we can see what other options there are.
And I like that Susan says in China, from China, that she chose 3 options. And I think that's probably very reflective of many of our experience. That it depends. It's contextual. Go ahead, Leslie.
It depends on who the person is and my state of mind, how patient I am, etc. So that's why I put something else, because I have different reactions depending, probably everything on the list.
Sure, that makes a lot of
Um,
sense.
Yeah, it's really different if it's a young child or a sib, or it depends on who it is. Yeah.
And what our state
Thank
is
you.
from moment to moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stephen.
I mostly I chose other because it was all of the above, depending on the moment. But there's also for me there was the idea that I actually try to listen more carefully or more quickly, or I may try to keep pace with the person if I find it, if it's a little like it might be stretching me a little bit or something.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That makes
Thank
sense.
you.
So, in other words, a connection where a conversation where we start to have a sense that we're losing connection can be an opportunity to practice our NVC skills. We might give ourselves a little bit of empathy, putting the oxygen mask on our own selves, and seeing if we can reconnect. The other person doesn't know we momentarily checked out in order to give ourselves some empathy, and then maybe we find the patience or the connection to go back in and see what's alive in the other person.
Yeah, I find that self-care in those really stressful moments when I can't really walk with someone is critical. To give myself permission to take care of myself and make the choices that are important, not in a way that is intended to do harm to someone else, but we are our most important responsibility in any given moment. Thank you.
And Clay.
You're
I was
muted.
just
There
trying
you
to
go.
type in the chat very close to Stephen. I have a conversation with myself as to whether or not I should try to interrupt an NBC, or is this really pressing that this person needs to express themselves, and do I need to just try to let them info dump and stay with them and grasp what I can. I know I love the 40 words concept in NBC, which is much past 40 words. I really can't totally remember everything. One of the strategies that I use in the practice groups, and if I'm working with somebody that I feel it's particularly important, is I will take bullet point notes as they go along.
Oh,
Nice.
uh-huh.
Nice. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Thank
sounds
you.
like an effective strategy.
Yeah, and for those of
Yeah.
you who might not be familiar with that 40 word thing, that was a thing that Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of nonviolent communication, would sometimes talk about and joke about. He said that he actually invented nonviolent communication for himself because he had brain damage. And people would always kind of lean forward with concern, what kind of brain damage are you talking about, Marshall? And he says, well, I have a pea brain. I can only pay attention to 40 words at a time. And so he claims that he invented NBC to support other people in being able to express in a way that he could stay connected. So I appreciate that. Diana?
I'm new to NBC, and I feel like I often interrupt people by telling them it's more because I want to hear everything. And sometimes people I'll just say, hey, can you stop for a second? Because I'm having a hard time keeping up and I really want to hear everything.
Nice.
I do that a lot. Or if somebody's trying to teach me something, those are things I've been thinking about where I get overwhelmed. They're going on and I don't understand it and I need them to slow down. So
Yeah.
those are just two things that came to mind. I didn't think about if I was in a conflict with somebody and they were talking too long.
I love what you say, because it's also reflective of what we covered last week, that we might interrupt with empathy for the needs that are alive in the other person, as I mentioned before. And sometimes we might do what you're suggesting, which is to interrupt with honesty, but again, not to take the floor away, but to move towards more clarity or more connection by interrupting, saying our honesty, I'm losing you a little bit. Can you find another way to express that, or something along those lines? And that can also be a way that can support connection by using honesty in order to interrupt.
Yeah, I love what you said because it moves us beyond the right wrong into the significance of connection.
Mhm.
And that's really, for me, the heart of nonviolent communication. Thank you, Diane.
So thanks for sharing, Diana, and for bringing your, you say you're brand new, but it sounds like you're actually beyond me in many ways. So thanks for sharing that.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
I think Diana is pointing out something that I mention almost every week, that we're all natural drafts. We're all natural NVC practitioners. The only thing keeping us from constantly living in the state of NVC consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, is the way we've been educated. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Juliana?
Actually, what I do is I first give myself empathy, and yeah, and just notice how I'm feeling inside, and that I'm feeling a little bit restless, really. And then I kind of give the other person empathy in my mind, just imagining that that person really has a need to, to be seen and to be heard, and then trying to connect it with the fact that maybe as a kid they weren't seen and heard enough, and so they just have this longing now, even as a grown up. So just trying to understand that way in my mind. And then finally, when it gets, a bit too long, then I open my mouth. And then my intention is to connect and not to correct. When I finally say, open my mouth and with compassion say, I really need to do something, important. So please can you, excuse me, or something like that. Yeah. And but the giving the person empathy and understanding helps to soften my heart, to kind of, even when I share myself honestly, it comes out with really compassion. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Juliana. Appreciate that. All right. Anybody need a little more time before you share your experience of something else? Then we'll move on. Wait one more second here and see if there's anybody else that's been waiting to be the last person to speak.
We
Okay.
so love to hear your voices and your experience. It enriches us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there's two other choices that we will talk a little bit about today. One we'll talk quite a bit about, and the other is the first other choice, which is I take time out to give myself empathy. So that can happen. That goes to being honest and saying, you know what? I realize that right now I'm not with you in the way that I'd like to be. I think I need some period of time in order to kind of give myself some empathy or get empathy from a friend, and then I can return to this conversation. That's a very self-responsible way of handling a situation where you just notice that you really can't take in any more words. And then the final choice that we'll spend some time practicing with today is screaming in giraffe.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll focus on that in just a minute.
And that doesn't necessarily mean raising your voice, but really being strongly with what's true for you.
Yeah. So let's talk about the aspiration. People read Marshall's book or start studying with a trainer, or join a practice group or whatever, and you're likely to hear someone say empathy before education, or empathy before honesty, or empathy before expression. So that is the aspiration, or maybe the aim, or the hope, or maybe it's even an inspiration. I'd love to be that way. I'd love to always be able to be in empathy, rather than to be reactive, to stay attuned to the feelings and needs of somebody else. And so as Jory and I were preparing for the class, she added the phrase self-empathy before empathy, before education, honesty, and expression, as someone else mentioned earlier as well, that by attending to ourselves first, then we can empathize with what's going on for the other person. Again, that doesn't require any words.
Yeah, that lives so deeply inside of me, and how I actually frame that is put your oxygen mask on yourself before assisting others. If anybody's been on an airplane, they've heard that. And it's been a really important piece in my growth and my learning.
I see your hand, Stephen. I'll attend to you in just a moment, please, if that works for you, because I want to talk about the reality first. So on the one hand, there's the aspiration, and rather than turn it into a should, I want to acknowledge the reality of our situation as human beings, that we have nervous systems, and nervous systems are designed to react to stimuli, whether it's something that we see, something we hear, smell, taste, touch, or even something that we think. We have nervous systems that have evolved to be able to be responsive to an environment that, traditionally speaking, over the course of our evolutionary career as human beings and as animals, it's been way more dangerous than it is currently, comparatively speaking. We used to have to worry about saber-toothed tigers. We used to have to worry about all kinds of things that being in more secure environments now, we don't have to worry about, but we still have the same nervous system that we had for the last million years or so. And so that carryover can keep us from having empathy. Empathy seems to be a relatively new and developing set of skills for human beings. And so we're still working on building those nervous system structures. And NVC, I think, and meditation and other mindfulness practices can help to rebuild our nervous system so we're less reactive to stimuli.
We don't want to lose our nervous system. It's a really important part. It's about actually having a relationship, a healthy relationship with our nervous system.
Yeah. And that goes to having some compassion for our history, not only as a species, but our own personal history. That because of the way we've been raised, maybe the trauma that we have suffered from childhood or other parts of our lives when we were harmed by experiences, by even the educational system that we've been through, which is often characterized by right and wrong and good and bad and getting graded and judged as a matter of everyday experience for most people in the educational system. That all has an impact on that aspiration to be in empathy. And then the final thing that creates a reality different than the aspiration is that human beings are great at building stories, stories of explanation about why something happened. And until we had needs language, really what we had instead was trying to figure out why the other person did what they did, and it often came as an experience of blame or criticism. So let me just pause there and check in with Siva first, and anybody else who wants to respond to this piece.
I have a question. The word empathy sounds like it's M is with pathos. So somebody here, I could ask my phone.
Yeah,
but
I can
left it.
I can tell you
I left it in the I left it in the other room. But what I think is important is, what is pathos?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what pathos means, but I can tell you where the source, my understanding of the source of the word empathy and how it became part of our language is actually relative. The experience of empathy, I think, is ancient as human beings learning to live together. We've required empathy for at least 100,000 years to live in the small groups that we have traditionally lived in and still live in some areas of the world. In Africa and South America and parts of Asia and so forth. But empathy as a word came into common usage in the 19th century, I believe it was, and it had to do with art. It was actually a word that was used to express the emotional experience of looking at a piece of art and imagining what it would be like to be in that art. So it's the ability of the human mind to project itself into a different experience than the one that you're having. And then it got generalized into the way that it's commonly used today as empathy. And Marshall, I like Marshall's definition best. It's one of my favorite definitions, that empathy is a respectful understanding of another person's experience. A respectful understanding of another person's experience. And so that's typically what I mean when I use that word empathy. And so that implies that another person is having a different experience that I am. They have a different history, a different set of traumas, a different education, different nervous systems than me, and different stories that they're going on. Can I get curious and become eager to understand what it's like to be the other person? So does that feel complete for right now, Siva? If you're talking, I can't hear you anymore. So
Said that's a really good foundation for further conversation.
great. Thanks, Siva.
Thank you, Siva.
And Harmony, and then Diana.
Yeah, I was just wanting to, could you please repeat the part about, I can't even remember what it said exactly, skill to storytelling or,
I said,
yeah, that last part.
I
Can
said,
you review what?
sure. I said we human beings have evolved a skill of story building, is what I said. And so, in other words, if something happens to me and I don't understand what happened, my brain seems to get really busy trying to figure out what happened. And so, for example, let's say that this actually happened just the other day. Yeah, I walked into church. We go to this a universal worship service on Sunday morning, and a friend of ours was there. There's only three of us that were in the room, and I walked into the room and I said hello to the other person, and the other person didn't really respond. They just kind of it was as if they were in their own world, and I didn't have any sense of that they had acknowledged my existence walking into the room. And so I made up a story. I said, I wonder if this person's mad at me. I wonder if somehow I offended them last time I saw them, and so on and so forth. So I started making up stories. I didn't do that on purpose. It's just something that my nervous system did, trying to make meaning out of the surprise of not being greeted in the way that I was expecting. And then after about 2 or 3 minutes, I said something else to the person, and so the next thing I know, we're hugging. And so I could see that my story, whatever story I had, was a complete illusion. But now I had to make up a new story. I didn't ask why they were distant or anything like that. I made up a new story. Oh, they were probably distracted, or maybe they didn't notice me. They were lost in thought, blah, blah, blah. And it's just what we human beings do. We just make up a story about what's happening. And then when we actually work on connection and have a dialogue, then we can co-build a story together about what's actually important to us in terms of our feelings and needs. Does that make sense, Harmony?
You're muted, Harmony.
Yes. Yeah, it does. Thank you so much. Perfect.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the question
Diana?
or the comment.
I wondered if I could get some clarity on the empathy definition, because you were saying that Marshall defined it as a respectful understanding of another person's experience. And for me, the word understanding, and maybe this is just me, but understanding to me is more of an intellectual process, kind of along the lines of what you were just saying about, the storytelling. Whereas empathy for me is much more of a, it's the presence, it's the heart presence. It's not really about here. It's about, coming from my core, not my intellect. So I was wondering if you wouldn't mind kind of commenting on.
I appreciate you saying that, because that's my experience also, that empathy is the being with someone. And then we also use that the word to point out how we express that. So we might or might not actually express that I'm actually walking with you in the moment. Does that clarify it for you?
Yeah, it sounds like we're probably on the same page. And I wasn't sure if that's what Marshall meant, or if he was referring to more of an intellectual process.
I think it is. I mean, Marshall made a distinction between intellectual understanding and I can't exactly remember what he called it, but more of what you're talking about, more of a heart-connected understanding. And if you think about the word understanding, it's like we're standing under something. What is it that we're standing under? And we can stand under an intellectual kind of trying to figure out the story, as you said, or we can stand for feelings and needs together. That I can enter into, like when you ask the question, my mind and heart immediately go to, so Diana's really curious and full of wonder and needing some clarity, and she's willing to make this request. And so that's a quality of empathic understanding. If I had a more intellectual kind of empathic understanding, I might try to analyze you. Or analyze myself that I wasn't clear enough or something like that. So that would be more at the intellectual level of understanding, which I'm in harmony with you that it's different, Diana.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you for your comments and question.
And Atreya?
I really like the way the whole conversation's unfolding. Did I sense correctly or understand? Well, there's no correct or right or wrong way, but so there's an essential mystery that a sacred kind of almost not understanding about the other, which one upholds when one is in empathy with another person that I don't quite understand. And does that bring the respect about a mystery? Like I will never wholly ever walk in his or her shoes. I can feel certain emotions very strongly or feel the pain. So a lot of slowing down, which I find very difficult for me because very much in my mind these days or in strategies. But could that be a definition of empathy?
Yeah, I think I think you're pointing to a deep truth that empathy is we're holding somebody in our heart. That really is what empathy is. And then there's a way of being able to express it and build some connection around it. And that's the skills that we work on to be able to move beyond just feeling with somebody to act or walking with somebody.
Yeah.
It's not about understanding everything about the person, really. In fact, there might be big gaps, big mysteries. I mean, the other is a mystery. Even I myself am a mystery at times.
That's right.
Yeah, we may not understand the whole story, but we touched the shared humanity, and that's where needs come in. Yeah, this is really hard for you. You really want to be understood. That's when we make an empathy guess, and it's sort of an invitation to the other person. We're not quizzing them, but it's an invitation to, I'm hearing you and hearing any other responses. Maybe I didn't hear you quite right, but that gives an opportunity to find out just by saying, oh, so for you, it's fill in the blank with some empathy. Thank you.
Thanks, Atreya. And Tanya, and then Rob, and then we'll move into the rest of the practice. Tanya?
If only I could find a little red line in the microphone. I actually love this. I love this definition for a couple of reasons. One, it has the word respect in it. And I find that a pretty pretty chunky part of what people long for is respect.
Mhm.
You know, it's like I'm always surprised that how often respect is what someone is longing for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I love the word respect in this. And I think Marshall is tapping into something we tend to have among Westerners. We tend to have this thing where we differentiate between intuition, thinking, and body response. That we have some kind of idea that there's some kind of separation between our thinking and our body, that our brain and our mind. And I love that when he's using the word understanding, he's not saying, he's not talking about prefrontal cortex understanding. He's not limiting it to that. He's saying understanding. We have lots of different intelligences. One of them is our somatic intelligence. Another one is our imaginative intelligence. There's all these different intelligences that we bring to any situation. And so he's just saying understanding. We're adding in the prefrontal cortex understanding to his definition.
That makes a lot of sense. That's the storytelling part that sometimes we add into it. That makes a lot of sense, Tanya. Thank you. And Rob?
Yeah, I remember I was in a empathy group at one point. Somebody who I really respected talking about suspending their own process, their thoughts, their reactions, and of course the outcome. And so, yeah, I guess that zero step that you talk about, that's what you describe it. So yeah, that's how I think of empathy. It's kind of starting empty.
Yeah.
And being an awareness. And another comment I had is just like, I know it's screaming in giraffe. I think I didn't used to hear that. I used to hear dog for your needs, but I think that went out of vogue or something. But I like dog for your needs.
Yeah, there's very similar
Remember?
concepts. Very similar concepts. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Thanks, Rob. So let's practice. And this will be a written exercise first, that ending with you going back to a paired practice with somebody else. Might be one group of three, depending on who's left on the call at that time. But first question, you are all able to think of a situation, if you're able to think or remember of a situation when you were listening to someone and somehow you became stimulated and you couldn't listen anymore. So think of a recent time when that happened. When you were with someone listening and somehow you got triggered or stimulated or caught up, or whatever words work for you, where you found it difficult to stay present and just write down the observation. What happened? This will be private, so you don't necessarily need to share this with anybody. Okay. Now, if you're ready, just see if you can go to your body-based experience and answer the question, how did you know that you had become stimulated or triggered? What were your clues that you're no longer connected? And make some notes to yourself about that. The purpose of that is just to start gaining your self-awareness, your self-connection skills. Okay. You can always get back to this later. But now fine tune your awareness and focus on sensations and emotions. What are you noticing in your body at the level of physical sensations and emotions? And then see if you can connect the feelings, these sensations and emotions, to your needs. In other words, what's important to you in this moment? What are you longing for? You may or may not have a word to describe this energy. Some words that might fit for some of you are connection, being seen, belonging, acceptance, something else. What's it about for you? If you want to put the needs into the chat that are alive in you, that might support other people in connecting to their needs. And someone, Nushin asks, is the experience of shutting down considered a sensation? Yeah, because there's something going. So how do you know you're shut down? Would be a way to go a little bit deeper with it. How do you know you're shutting down? What do you notice in your mind or in your heart or in your body that you associate with shutting down? How would you describe shutting down to somebody from another planet? Unmute you.
And what we're looking for now is the needs that are behind the shutting down in this particular case, or whatever else you've experienced. So if people would put some of the needs that are coming up for you in the chat, it might be helpful for other people as well.
Choice, acceptance,
Empathy,
support.
to be seen.
Validated, very similar, I think, to being seen or to be heard. To have your experience, have someone else have a respectful understanding of your experience. So maybe it's empathy, connection, consideration, peace, credibility. I drilled down okay into peace and harmony. Yeah, I like what Clay is pointing to here with drilling down. If that's not a familiar concept to you, I'm not sure if this is what Clay means, but when I think of drill down, it means like I might start with a strategy, like I need the other person to listen to me, and then, or I need to feel okay, something like that. Then, and I ask myself, well, if I felt okay, what might that be? What might that experience be like? Well, I would have a sense of peace or harmony.
And then you go down to, and what's the deeper meaning of that? And keep asking yourself that question until you get to what we call a need, and it's there when you're, in my experience, and I think other people have had it too, there's almost a relaxation. It's like, yeah, that's what really matters. And it's beyond the right, wrong. It's right down into our shared humanity. And I see Nikhil Nanda has written community, compassion, balance.
Rest, ease, shared reality. Yeah, there's this openness that happens. This Marshall called it shift. There's this shift that happens in our body when we get to the level of needs. Whereas this, like Jory was saying, this quality of opening, and it may come with sadness. It doesn't mean that you're going to feel yippity yippity or zippity doodah. It might come with a lot of sadness, because the natural experience that human beings have when their needs are not satisfied is often a painful sensation or emotion, and belonging for Rob.
Yeah, and it really touches us into our shared humanity. That phrase right there, it to me is at the core of it. So when you look at the needs that you connect to, do you connect to how you share that with everyone else? Of course that matters. That matters to all of us. Of course we have feelings around it, because it's such an essential essence of our being.
And then the final question to think about for a minute or so, and then I'm going to open up pairs for you to talk about it with a partner. How could you communicate your feelings and needs without blame? So we've been working on getting connected to those feelings, the sensations and emotions, and then the needs. And now just imagine that your intuition is to speak up and communicate your feelings and needs to somebody else. Okay, I'm going to put open up some small groups for you to talk about this last piece, and then we'll debrief it when we come back. And so let's do this for about 13 minutes plus one. Give you a chance. There's only pairs, so there'll be each person will have about 7 minutes to work on your expression. And the idea would be that if you're working on your expression, the other person is there to be kind of a sounding board, to mostly be a listener. And if you would like some advice, you can always ask for, hey, can you help me polish this up? Or what do you think about this? Or let me try it out on you and do a little role play, that kind of a thing. So each,
Yeah, but wait for the request before you try and help in that way, please.
yeah. So everybody have about 7 minutes, and then we'll come back here and talk about it. So I'm going to open up the groups now. So I'd love to hear from a few people about what you came up with in terms of what you might say in that kind of a situation. Just say the line that you wrote.
Or put it in the chat.
Or put it in the chat. What would you say in that situation, doing the best you could to express your feelings and needs without blame? No right or wrong answers. I promise I won't try to correct you. I'll just listen to you, knowing that everybody did the best they could with a really challenging situation.
Don't all shout at once.
Okay,
There you go,
Nushin.
Thank you so much for the space. I just wanted to share something that just came up for me in the conversation. I don't know, somehow I just with that interruption, topic, a lot of time I experience the power over. And I just went inside and I'm like, why is it like it's triggering me so much? And I'm just realizing that I'm an Iranian woman. It's like we have been just like our voices have been just shut down, like we have just made in our lives, that the brothers that just said that, if you're not going to if you're not going to get quiet, I'm going to hit you. Or there are just like, the male figures in our lives that they have shut our voices down. And I'm like, okay, you shut my voice down, I'm going to show you a piece of who I am. My voice has to be done. Not even when they're in the streets, and then they're just talking at the same time. I just don't like the person that I become. Then I just want to prove my point, because it becomes about not seeing the other person. And I don't like the person in the mirror. I don't like what I'm seeing. So I realize that the more listening it is, the more exchange it is, when we are talking with each other, especially with the male, figure. So there is more conversation going on. And then maybe it can start with me, as a female, like, okay, I hear you. And that's where, so I don't know if I'm expressing it, but I just thought that
Can
it
I tell
is
you
of
what I
more value
heard?
for me to just see the flow.
Yeah. Can I tell you what I heard,
Yes.
Nushin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I really
Yes,
heard
please. Yeah.
and connected to the deep experience you have in your own lived experience about having a violent reaction to your voice, and how now that things are shifting in you, sometimes the new reaction is, rather than shutting down, out of fear. Now you speak up out of anger.
Mhm.
And then after you do that, you realize you haven't met your own needs for integrity or how you want to show up in the world. And so then you beat yourself up a little bit around that. And what a delicate position to be in as you're trying to navigate a situation where finding your own voice is brand new and so different than your previous lived experience.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a part of the healing process that you're going through, given what you have lived with. It's, we go a little bigger than we would expect or want ultimately, because it's like there's a pressure that's built up and it explodes more easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that vulnerability.
Thank you for the space. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I imagine there are people on this call for whom that's not foreign to them either. And that's really one of the beauties of and the gifts of being willing to share that vulnerably. Thank you.
Yeah. And Rob?
Yeah, my situation is that I found myself explosive when my significant other was talking about her niece coming, and it just didn't, I felt empowered. It felt really good how angry and jackal I was for a while, but then I think about it, it's like, then I realized, why couldn't we went out, actually we're on vacation for 2 weeks together, and I realized for emotional protection, I was shutting down with her. She talks very quickly. She's very smart. I can't, and but all this doesn't meet my need for aliveness. You know how I am with the situation. So I'm imagining I would say to her, would you be willing to slow down for a couple minutes and maybe we can just talk here? And I'm imagining us talking slower and just kind of hopefully trying to get some of my needs met instead of being numb and shutting down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if you could get a little bit more specific about what those needs are, that there's a likelihood that those will resonate with the other person. That's the beauty of connecting
Yeah.
to what you
Well,
actually do want. Yeah.
yeah, it was a need for choice a lot because she directed the vacation and she wouldn't listen to me or blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I feel stimulated right now about it. It was a horrible trip in some ways.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it was such a beautiful spot. So regret. Yeah, it was funny. It's also for my need for belonging because this is extended family and we should, if the family can't get along, how we're going to have peace in the world, type of thing, and expectations but I was emotionally out around her. So yeah, just emotional protection and choice was the thing that weren't met.
Yeah. Yeah. So catch your morning, Rob. I really catch your morning.
Yeah. Thank you.
Morning on lots of different levels. And I also want to appreciate this urge in you for a do-over, an urge to find another way to express yourself in a way that is more connecting from now on.
Yes, because like I say, it was the energy of Jackal was so alive, and that's what I'm meaning is more aliveness. So, but it's not a false, it didn't feel good after a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, my partner was going, stop. So I wasn't.
Right. Again, it's about your own integrity, right? Similar to Nushin.
Yeah.
That it's like it's almost like a natural progression to go from shut down and ignoring the other person to now really wanting to be heard. And then, but yet it's not really being heard in a way that leads to the quality of connection that you're really longing for.
Yeah, there's a buildup of pressure it's holding it down until.
And then it comes out your ears like in the cartoons,
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob.
Sure does. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Jody?
Looking for that
Hi,
button.
Jim and Jory. I haven't seen you. I haven't seen you in a really long time.
Yeah, hi.
Santa Barbara.
Yep.
It's good to it's good to see you. What I spoke about kind of goes across the board with some of my communication, but the deal is it's kind of similar to what you're already talking about. But I used my mom as an example, but it was in my last relationship, which ended really badly recently. And it seems to be a little more pervasive. And what I was sharing with my partner is that I'm going to be really honest. I've forgotten how to do a lot of this. And I was in a really horrible, abusive relationship that just ended. I'm not going to say a whole lot more, but I felt like that I tried some of this stuff. I tried. And and what came up for me during the share, and I've been trying, sometimes I'll try talking to my mom about how I'm feeling, like I'm feeling really sad and really heartbroken, and there's a lot of pieces to this. And my mom, and along with what my ex would have said, is, something like just kind of ignoring, like my mom will say something like, well, lots of people get broken up, lots of people get divorced, and it's like,
Ouch.
I find myself super sad. I was telling my partner in this the partner tonight, I was very hopeless. And with my ex, I tried some of this languaging. And what came up for me tonight was that I don't really know what to say or what to do anymore. And I go down this whole hopeless sort of rabbit hole, feeling scared, feeling like, am I ever going to really be able to talk to people like that? Like when I listen to you guys, I'm good. For when I hear you, I'm like, oh my God, I can breathe. This is me. This is what I want. But when I'm on my own and I get in these tough places, just even with the conversation with my mom, I just give up. And I think, how can I ever do this? Say what I really need to say without people getting mad, getting upset, or me blaming or them blaming. Anyways, that's the gist.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it's really challenging because what you're hoping for is connection, and you're not sensing that that's what you're getting, and feeling hopeless that
No.
happen. And I want you to know there are other people who are shaking their head yes, as you said that they have that experience also, just for some accompaniment. You're not alone, Jody. It doesn't mean that it feels any better, but the need is still there and the desire is, but you're not alone in this.
Yeah.
How is that for you to hear?
Oh, it feels good. I mean, in some respects, to hear that. I know it can be universal. I think two things that come up for me is how am I going to start navigating this with speaking up, or how I feel, or what's needed, or what's going on, even maybe in the midst of this total ignorance or shutdown or whatever, not being heard, not being seen, all that from the other person. And I feel like I don't know what to do. I'm just feeling like shit. I feel stuck.
Sure.
Which feels scary.
Of course.
Yeah. And I shared that you're not alone, because we really need a lot of empathy when things seem to be like brick walls that we're banging up against. And so at the end of the call, I want you to know that my contact information will be here if you'd like to have a call to navigate and to first get the empathy you need to be able to navigate this.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Troy.
Yeah. And the experience, by the way, of hopelessness and helplessness in certain relationships is matches my own experience. And so NVC, sometimes, like I was rereading Marshall's book today, preparing for the class, and I said, the thought I had was, man, this sounds so good in theory. But when I'm actually trying to do it, it's hard. And here I am trying to teach you guys the theory and the practice. And so I'm really glad that you're making space to acknowledge that just because you understand it intellectually and really have a deep desire to practice it, it doesn't make it easy. And sometimes it feels hopeless and helpless that we're ever going to have the quality of connection with some people anyway that we would really like.
Yeah.
And I heard an embedded request in what you said is, so what do I do with that? And so I love the advice I got from Doug Dolstedt, another certified trainer up in the Pacific Northwest. And his advice that I heard once was look for evidence of what you want actually happening, which is the opposite of what our nervous systems want to do. Our brains want to find all the exceptions to what's not working. And when I shifted my attention to start looking for conversations and communications that were going well, I got to see that I had a lot more skill than I thought I did. It might just be with the grocery store clerk or with my dog or my cat or my neighbor or someone where it's not such a high stakes conversation, but it began to give me confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually why I became a trainer.
Okay.
It's so easy for me to do this with you guys because I don't have stuff with you. But with Jory and me, we got stuff. We got 45 years of luggage we've been carrying around. And so, if you came and lived with us, you would see that
We have our moments.
Even after 20 years of practice, using these skills can be quite a challenge, at least for me.
Yeah.
Jory, of course, is perfect at it.
Yeah. Yeah, my moments are perfection. Yeah, we have our moments. Right.
Yeah. Is that complete enough for now, Jody?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jody, for speaking up.
I see
Thank
two
you.
more hands, and I want to acknowledge those hands, and we'll get to them. But I want to do the little things we do at the end at 6:25 in Hawaii time, anyway, and give you some links of how to stay connected.
And we do want to hear from the two of you.
Yeah, so keep your hands up. We'll come back to you in just a second. As Jory mentioned, she loves. Why don't you say it while I find the link, Jory?
Okay. I prefer, or I enjoy, I should say, I enjoy working with people one-on-one or working with couples or, to really be able to go deep with individuals or just to be there for support. We all need support sometimes. So to that end, you're welcome to make an appointment on my calendar. And Jim is putting in the link to do that. It's already in the chat, jory.youcanbook.me. So if you would like to be heard, if you think that would support you, please feel free to check out my calendar.
And how much do you charge for this? People want to know.
I don't charge. I work on a gift economy. I give only what I want to give. I don't want to receive anything more than what you want to give. So it's a flow of shared humanity as far as I can tell, and that's what I want to live in.
Thank you, Jory. And here is a link here to get on our mail list. If you're not getting emails from us once a week, they usually come out on Sunday, sometimes earlier in the week. But if you're not getting emails from us, try going to that link and signing up. We do make recordings of all the calls, and we put them both on our YouTube channel and our website. So there's two ways that you'll see them. And so if you want to review this call and get more practice, you can use it in your own practice group or whatever would serve you. Then that'll go up in a day or two. I wrote a book that came out about a year ago that talks about something called the Pathways to Liberation, which are a group of 28 skills. We're actually working with them as we're doing these classes. And if you want to buy a copy of the book and give it to people that for holidays, or especially people that might enjoy learning it, please do that. So I think it's only like $8 or something like that.
And maybe you want to gift yourself.
And I think the YouTube channel, if you follow that link there, it's called Radical Compassion, and it'll take you right to the YouTube channel, Jody. And I think there's quite a few recordings up there now. And thanks for, if you're subscribing to that YouTube channel, then you get a notification as soon as there's a new recording that goes up. Speaking of the gift economy, we give these classes freely with the joy of a child feeding a hungry duck. But if you want to give some money back, you can PayPal it to me. And you might say, what do you do with that money? And what we do with it is we try to figure out how to use the money that we receive to meet needs. Usually it goes to pay for scholarships for people in the global majority that may not have otherwise access to being able to do nonviolent communication training. And it also supports the local trainers in those countries as well. And if you want to give money directly to the Center for Nonviolent Communication, which is the organization that Marshall started about almost 50 years ago, then you can follow that new link. That's a new link to give money directly to the center. If you're a U.S. Taxpayer, you may get a tax-deductible donation for that kind of a gift. So you can check with your own accountant about that. And with that, I think that's all the little, what are we going to do next week? Well, next week here in the United States, we celebrate gratitude. We take one day out of 365 to celebrate thankfulness. We call it Thanksgiving. And so we're going to, I actually like to practice it 365 days a year, but we're going to play with it next week. We're going to play with gratitude. And so maybe you can have a really warm, connecting Thanksgiving with people. You'll get some skills for both expressing and receiving gratitude, and maybe you can take some leadership at the Thanksgiving table and talk about things that are more connecting than the polarized topics that often come up at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's all the things that I wanted to talk about.
I think so. And now we have Kimberly and then Tanya who want to speak.
Yep.
Go ahead, Kimberly.
Hi. I came late. I had no choice, and I was sorry to miss all that you talked about. And one thing I want to acknowledge is something. My son is in crisis right now, and my relationship with him was in crisis for years. And right around the beginning of COVID, I did NVC in a more concerted way through a parenting class, and then I continued to do parenting classes. My son is 21 now, and I just wanted to celebrate that and say that we've come so many miles from such hardship and difficulty and mistrust on his part of me, and reactivity. And he doesn't need to know about NVC. He doesn't need to practice it. He's a child. He just needed to have a lot of space and time to trust me again. I couldn't figure out why he didn't trust me, but I had to go with what he told me. Without going into great detail, I just want to say that and then I went on and took parenting classes in the evening, very intensive ones on a weekly basis for over a year, that incorporated NVC. And he's in crisis right now. And just to give you an example, last night we were on the phone for 4 hours together.
Wow.
And just talking about anything and everything. And he's in the military now, which is a very scary place for him to be. And he told me all about boot camp and how horrible it was and how scary it was. And just shared with me, I want to say cumulatively in that one conversation, more than he had shared for cumulatively over many, many years. And I really rejoice and do believe that it has everything to do with NVC. Everything to do with NVC. And there's a beauty to being the parent and using these principles, because you have less expectation for the other, I think, is what I'm realizing talking right now. I just kind of had to take it upon myself and really use the practice of empathy outside of the relationship. And I, for so long, had yearned for appreciation from him and empathy from him and acknowledgement from him and respect from him and all the things. And I hear so many moms saying the same thing, but they don't, and they should, and why can't they? And I'm hurt and I'm sad. And I had to leave off from all of that, from all of it. Not completely, but completely with him. I had to do that work elsewhere.
Right.
So I didn't think I'd use my whole little space here for that, but it's such a beautiful thing that I'm glad I did.
I'm really catching your celebration, Kimberly, of how far your relationship with him has gone, and that you're really wanting, maybe the embedded request is you just like us all to hold you and him in our compassionate hearts as he navigates perhaps one of the most biggest challenges that a human being can go through, which is a military boot camp.
Oh, well, can I say that that was in the past? Right now, he's experiencing a huge trauma with his fiance, who was accosted. So we're dealing with a whole other thing, and that's why he was on. I didn't ever hear about boot camp. That was many months ago. So I guess what I'm saying is not that you need the details, but that he's trusting me and calling me constantly and wanting to talk to me. This is like a zillion degree change from where we were a year or two ago.
What a big difference.
Yay.
Yay. Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you. Glad to celebrate that with you.
Thank you.
By the way, in just a moment, we will make some new groups for you if you want to hang out, and we call it the after party. And so we'll make some new groups if you want to stick around at the end of the call here. We'll hear Tanya and Siva, but then we'll make some new groups for you if you want to stay connected. Tanya?
I think they're, well, now it's kind of a hard act to follow, but I think what I have to say is almost related to it. The giving up expecting other people to meet my needs is a big deal. And in realizing, and part of that is realizing I could do a perfect 0-step, gratitude, empathy, whatever. I could do like perfect, whatever that might be. And the other person still has the right and the choice to not connect with me.
Yeah.
The other person can want to be disconnected from me, and that's their choice. And if I'm willing to accept that, I'm a much happier person. I'm just saying that from experience.
Very liberating to not have your life being attached to whether the person does one thing or another. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, to me, that's like 0-step is they could decide to walk away from me mid-sentence if they want. That's their choice.
Yeah.
And the other thing is just me also, I have that choice. Of if I look at a situation or I look at a person who I'm reacting to, who's stimulating me, I'm reacting. That's my stimulation. It's not theirs. It's mine. I'm the one, I own that stimulation, and I'm responsible for what I do with it. And I can choose based on what I'm observing to say, there is absolutely nothing I can say to this person that will make any form of positive outcome. Right. And choose not to say anything or to talk about the weather. Yeah. And, and I learned that from my husband, who the first time he met my parents, we were driving away, and he goes, "Oh, your dad really likes to wind you up, doesn't he?" And it was like the first time I was gobsmacked, because it was completely invisible to me until he said that. Yeah. And we made a pact that whenever my dad tried to wind us up, we'd talk about the weather. So absolutely.
Nice. Beautiful. All right. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, Tanya.
And we'll finish with Siva, and then we'll open up some small groups for you. Go ahead, Siva.
Well, I put up my hand to thank Kimberly for her honesty, and it made me feel so much more powerful. Thank you, Kimberly. And then Tanya put the icing on the cake. And yeah, I think being really honest with other people and not faking it is a way for them to have compassion for their own self and be really honest with you in terms of getting both of your needs met. And week after week, I come to this class to be to learn, to get the wisdom that people are sharing, and thank you, especially Kimberly and Tanya, for your last two True Confession magazine.
All right. Thank you, Siva. I'm gonna. How about we all just say a farewell? You can open up your mic, then I'll turn the recording off and make and put you back with your partner. And if you don't have a partner, we'll make a small group for you. So just say aloha and see you next week.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
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 Bye.